Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Kasanovich, and today I will be discussing Apple and giving a little company analysis on how they operate and how they've come to be the success story that they are today. Just a little bit of background information on the company. It was founded in 1976 by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who are actually collegiate dropouts, and if you've never read the story, I would definitely suggest looking into it. Basically, they started this company in their garage. It was a lot harder to find investors back then. It was very difficult to get started. They did see success within their first decade, eventually being on the Fortune 500 list, but being at the start of this, it was very difficult for them. So the first product they actually did release was called the Apple I computer. Very large computer, but was very impressive for this time being in the technological advances that they had back then. So we mainly know Apple for the iPhone, which was actually not released until 2007. I would say that's the biggest digital transformation that they've been able to promote in order to get the success that they have today. Looking at the technological industry as a whole, Apple operates and offers different types of products within this industry. So it's not limited to cell phones, laptops, computers, watches, iPads, things along those lines. Basically a wide variety of products to appeal to different types of people within the market. So some of the competitors within this industry, depending on the type of product, we'll start first with the smartphone. So Samsung Galaxy, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that, is basically switching in and out with the number one and number two phone behind or in front of the iPhone. So depending on personal preference, but the iPhone and the Galaxy are definitely the two top of the industry. Regarding laptops and computers, Apple offers the MacBooks, and companies such as HP or Lenovo offer a wide range of laptops as well, typically ranging from price of a couple $100 upwards to a couple $1,000. So MacBooks typically go for at least $1,000. So a lot of their products are a lot higher priced, so their competitors typically have some type of price advantage in that case, depending on who they're trying to seek in the market. Today's day and age, we do see technology continue to progress and innovate. A lot of people do view this as a necessity, or a lot of people do view it as a privilege, depending on the usage. A lot of businesses use, obviously, computers, cell phones, tablets, some type of presentation, screening, things like that to get their day-to-day work done. So I would view more so as it's moving toward a necessity. But other people that use technology such as gaming systems and televisions, Kindles, things like that, may just seem as a privilege for the time being or moving forward. But eventually I think technology is going to become a huge necessity within our industry and our world. Last but not least, the industry is very expensive, so in order to keep at the top and or continue to progress within this industry, a lot of money needs to be invested in technological advances, innovation of products in order to continuously improve. The speed in which products either are new or improve is very quick. So in order to continue to see a sustainable success, it's important to have this type of financial capabilities available at time. So looking a little bit deeper at Apple's strategy, they focus, as I've said, on innovative products along with making them simple and not complex. So what that actually means is they want the design to be simple, so the aesthetics of the iPhone are typically very eye-revealing, but they want the capabilities within that product to be complex, being that they have a lot of capabilities such as voice commands or applications, programming, speed, battery life, things like that, to kind of set them over the edge in terms of getting a little bit of advantage of their competitors. So typically the way that Apple improves their products is when they release a new one, they typically send one of the previous models to research and development in order to see what they can do better, in order to increase, the storage capability, battery life, things along those lines, to give the next generation of consumers the better experience. Not only do they earn products or revenue from their products themselves, but they also have contracts with people that have applications within their app store, or along with the Siri search engine, which is operated under Google. So under the applications, they typically have some type of split contract in which Apple gets some type of revenue from people downloading that company's apps, even if it's free, because they get some type of ad revenue, or the Siri search engine, which Siri is a voice command system that Apple users have on their phones. This is used, just by holding the start button or the home button, just to talk to Siri, and they can send text messages, make phone calls, search something. So Google paid a pretty penny. It was a little over $9 billion to have this contract, basically just to have them get more traffic and more ad revenue, things along those lines. So it just goes to show the capability of these Apple products and what they can bring to other companies as well. Looking more so at the target market and the customer loyalty within that market, typically Apple tends to try to attract the younger generation, particularly ages 18 to 35, and that's just because they have an easier capability of being able to understand technology and operate it more efficiently. So whenever they buy one of these products, they kind of know its full capabilities and get the most out of their investment. Apple does have history of selling more to middle-aged people as well, particularly men, but they typically do try to get the younger generation to purchase more, just because of the capabilities within their mindset, along with the ability to have them come back as loyal customers as well. So looking at the loyalty within customers, anytime an Apple product is typically released, specifically the iPhone, typically there's some type of line outside the door of the local Best Buy, Verizon store, whether that be the day of, a couple days before. People tend to even camp out depending on the type of item. So the loyalty within the product or the market itself is very high. Also, with the vast amount of Apple products that are just out in the world at the moment, anywhere you look, you typically see an iPhone, a MacBook, Apple Watch, AirPods, something along those lines. So just the amount of volume has really helped Apple build their brand image and help build their loyalty as well with their consumers. Now getting more into the analysis work of Apple, so we'll begin by looking at Michael Porter's 5 competitive forces, which I believe is one of the best to start looking at a company analysis. So looking at the competition within the industry, I have it listed as very high because of the promise of technology that we're going to continue to have in the future. We're going to continuously innovate these products and, as I said, make them more of a necessity as opposed to a privilege. So with that said, these are just going to be things that are just used in our everyday life. So with the high amount of competition, this gives consumers the option to choose from different vendors or different companies to purchase from. So with that said as well, a lot of new entrants may try to enter the industry, whether that be now or that be 5 years in the future. It may be more saturated of a market, but there's always going to be some type of entry that people try to make the next best thing, basically. Looking at the power of suppliers, so in terms of Apple, this kind of depends on what the suppliers are for. So if they're specifically used for, let's say, research and development or innovation, it's kind of hard to get another facility or vendor, wherever it's at, to let someone have the research capability they need to operate there. If it's just somebody shipping them products for manufacturing purposes or something along those lines, typically that would be a lot easier to make a new contract with a new vendor. But in terms of their innovation, Apple has to be really careful with maintaining positive relationships with their vendors and making sure that process is smooth sailing moving forward. And the power of consumers, as I said before, some people tend to use technology for entertainment, whether that be watching Netflix on TV or playing Xbox, PlayStation, things along those lines. So those power of consumers is very high on their end in terms of they don't have to purchase any type of electronics or technological products from Apple. For business purposes, as we get more and more into making them used more on a daily basis, it's going to be very imperative that businesses do purchase them from some type of other business. So whether that be Apple, HP, Dell, along those lines, that kind of gives more power to Apple in terms of what they want to price their items at, in terms of making it competitive but making profit, things along those lines. So that'll get a lot more tight as we move into the future. And the threat of substitutes is very high just because there's a lot of competition. It's a large industry, which means that if a person's looking for a laptop, there's countless amounts of companies they can go to with different price ranges, capabilities such as storage, battery life, things along those lines. So there's always different options out there that a person can look at whenever they're looking to buy something. Now building off that into the SWOT analysis, so we have the strengths of Apple, which include its image, innovation capabilities, and cash flow on hand. So typically Apple uses the cash flow in order to innovate their products so they can invest a lot, being that this is an expensive industry, which kind of gives them the edge over their competitors. I would say their main weakness is their pricing, also their management, being that they operate primarily under the decisions of their CEO. So the pricing is very high in terms of their phones, their AirPods, their laptops, very high compared to some of their competitors. So it's going to be imperative that they make sure that they're price sensitive depending on their market. Opportunities, which we'll get into on the next slide: international market, artificial intelligence, and pricing improvements. And some of the threats, like I've discussed, are competitors along with pricing in terms of undercut. Other companies can list their products at a lower price, and then new products being introduced to the market as well. Of course, we never know what the next big thing will be. So moving on to the recommendations I have, first being the international market. So Apple actually made about 64% of their revenues of 2018 from international market as opposed to domestic. So they do already have international presence, but I think it's crucial to find a way to make that sustainable in terms of understanding the international countries and making sure that they abide by their laws, policies, and kind of abide to their needs as well. Regarding pricing, as I've said, their products are fairly high in terms of pricing and compared to their competitors. So I think they just need to kind of take a look at what their actual target market is. For example, if you're selling to somebody that's 30 years old versus a freshman in college, you're going to have different spending capabilities. So I think they need to be a little bit more price sensitive in terms of who they're selling to, and try to find maybe a happy medium that can not only generate them profit, but can increase their sales as well. Lastly, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is one of the most upcoming topics in the technological industry today. I think it's very important and crucial that they do invest in this, but understand that the capabilities of artificial intelligence could be very crucial in terms of what the consumer understands. So this is basically when consumers see like ads pop up on their Google based on their Google search engine, something along those lines. So it's very crucial and imperative that Apple understands the privacy rights of their consumers and informs them of this before making any changes in terms of their research and findings. Discussing pricing, as I've said, this is just kind of a breakdown from Statista.com regarding the pricing of their iPhone X and kind of how it varies over the source of different countries. So this allows Apple to kind of generate different types of revenue. This is also kind of just an example of how they can be price sensitive while still maintaining a positive revenue as well. So just kind of following this graph, they can make sure they abide to this and, kind of be more price sensitive towards like college students, things along those lines, to make sure they get a deal and are happy as well. And on artificial intelligence, it just goes to show some of the companies that do use it at the moment. As we see, Microsoft, Sony, IBM, some of Apple's largest competitors are already having patents within this. So it's not long until Apple jump on this train and kind of generate revenue from this. But as I said before, it has to be very cautious and they should tread lightly in order to succeed properly. And I thank you all for listening to my presentation. It's been a pleasure to take this course over the last 8 weeks. Dr. Potter and Dr. Seth, I thank you both very much. I wish you all a very happy summer, and it was a pleasure working with you. Thank Thank you all, and you have a good evening. Bye-bye.